Poison Ivy won't be attacking California City. For those who didn't get the reference, Poison Ivy is a DC character that hates pollution. So, why did I say that? Well, because California has passed a rule that will definitely alter the hope of a green Earth, and in a good way. Welcome to ManaTech. Today we are talisman about why California banned gas-powered cars. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you won't miss an update. So, why did they do that? And what does it mean for your petrol car? Stick to the end if you want to find out. Without any delay, let's get started. As the state takes drastic measures to reduce emissions and address the climate disaster, California has authorized a ban on the sale of new gas-powered automobiles by 2035. State officials approved a proposal on the 25th of August to gradually phase out the sale of gas-powered vehicles over the following 13 years in the country's largest auto market. The action is being hailed as a significant victory that may show others the way forward. It makes the most populous US state subject to some of the strictest restrictions in the world regarding the switch to electric vehicles. This is a historic moment for California, for our partner states, and for the world as we set forward on this path toward a zero-emission future, stated Leanne Randolph, chair of the regulatory body that approved the plan, the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. Funny to name your group after a brand of nutrition. This is monumental, said Daniel Sperling, a member of CARB. This is the most important thing that CARB has done in the last 30 years. It's important not just for California, but it's important for the country and the world. After 2035, the law permits Californians to continue driving gas-powered cars and purchasing second-hand ones, but no new models will be sold in the state. It is applicable to all brand new automobiles, pickup trucks, and SUVs. The idea still needs federal approval, but under Joe Biden's administration, that is seen as very likely. The referendum was held 2 years after Gavin Newsom, the governor of the state, signed an executive order requiring zero-emission vehicles to be sold. According to CARB, only 12% of new cars sold in California in 2021 will be zero-emission vehicles, despite the fact that 16% of vehicles purchased in the first quarter of the year were electric. By 2026, 68%, by 2030, and 100% by 2035. The state would need to attain 35% of sales, according to the new regulation. Cars that are currently on the road wouldn't be impacted. Sperling claimed that the bill will serve as a model for other states that frequently turn to California when establishing their own standards. Sperling said that considering the increased manufacturing of electric vehicles, there was very little debate and opposition to the notion. By 2035, General Motors intends to offer solely electric vehicles, the company stated. However, in a CARB meeting in June, some automakers claimed that the state's move to electric vehicles would be a challenge for the sector. There are very real challenges in meeting consumer demand for affordability and ease of charging, while at the same time overcoming existing global supply disruptions and limited access to critical minerals, said David Barker with North American Subaru. And all of these challenges are amplified for smaller manufacturers like Subaru. Meeting the state's ambitious timeline will be difficult, according to Alliance for Automotive Innovation, which is made up of many major automakers, because there isn't enough infrastructure for charging. It's difficult to get the materials needed for batteries, and there are problems with the supply chain. These are complex, intertwined, and global issues well beyond the control of either CARB or the auto industry, said John Bozzella, the group's president. When releasing his executive order in 2020, Newsom said that the transportation industry is responsible for more than half of California's carbon pollution. The initiative has received praise from the governor for being an important step in addressing the climate emergency, which has fueled expensive and damaging natural disasters in the state. This is the most impactful step our state can take to fight climate change, Newsom said at the time. Californians shouldn't have to worry if our cars are giving our kids asthma. Our cars shouldn't make wildfires worse and create more days filled with smoky air. Cars shouldn't melt glaciers or raise sea levels, threatening our cherished beaches and coastlines. According to research, switching to electric vehicles would have a significant impact in the US, where transportation is the main cause of the nation's greenhouse gas emissions. According to a survey earlier this year from the American Lung Association, switching from gas-powered to zero-emission vehicles would save the US 110,000 lives, $1.2 trillion in public health expenses, and 92% of greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Despite the decision on 25th of August, California will take some time to switch over to electric vehicles because there will be far more gas-powered automobiles on the road than zero-emission vehicles. Gas cars purchased today are anticipated to be on the road for decades. According to a study from 2020, if the US wanted to have an all-electric fleet by the year 2050, it would have had to switch to electric car sales solely in that year. There's an enormous amount of inertia in the system to overcome, Abdullah Al-Arfaj, a graduate student at Carnegie Mellon University and lead author of the study. To accommodate the increase in electric vehicles, California will need to increase the number of public charging stations. The state wants 250,000 stations in public spaces by 2025, but now only has approximately 80,000 of them, which will increase the load on the grid in California. This is going to be a transformative process, and the mandate for vehicle sales is only one piece of it, said Mary Nichols, the former CARB chair. Environmental organizations have applauded the state's new regulations, but urged officials to make electric vehicles more widely available. California is once again leading the way by establishing common-sense standards that will transition to sales of all zero-polluting cars and light-duty trucks in the state. Given its unique air pollution woes and the risks to residents from climate-fueled wildfires, California desperately needs these rules to slash tailpipe pollution, said Kathy Harris, a clean vehicle advocate with the Natural Resource Defense Council. But this cannot be the final step. State leaders must build on this action so traditionally marginalized communities benefit from the transition to clean vehicles. Federal and Californian governments both provide incentives to help with the cost of purchasing electric vehicles. Although some experts believe California hasn't gone far enough, the state's new regulations provide incentives for automakers to make used electric vehicles accessible to low and middle-income people. Approximately 40% of the state's greenhouse gas emissions come from transportation, which is currently the single biggest source of emissions in California. According to state regulators, the new regulations will, in 2040, result in a reduction in passenger vehicle greenhouse gas emissions of more than 50% from pre-policy levels. According to Leanne Randolph, chairwoman of the California Air Resources Board, that equates to a reduction of 395 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions over that time period, or the equivalent of burning 915 million barrels of oil. California is permitted to impose stricter pollution regulations than the federal government under the Federal Clean Air Act. More than a dozen additional states have recently adopted California's regulations, including New York, Massachusetts, and Washington. 1/3 of the American auto market is made up of these states, including California, several of which have already indicated that they will follow suit with the 2035 ban on internal combustion engines. This is huge, said Margot Ogue, an electric vehicles expert who led the Environmental Protection Agency's transportation emissions program under President Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama. As additional states put in place their own versions of these policies, they will drive the market and drive innovations, she said. In the words of Governor Gavin Newsom, the ban is one of the most significant steps to the elimination of the tailpipes as we know it. Our kids are going to act like it's a rotary phone or changing the channel on a television, Newsom said in an interview with my colleagues. You can keep your petrol guzzler because the regulations only apply to the sales of new vehicles. After 2035, you can still purchase or sell used gasoline-powered vehicles. Now you know why California made this decision. That's all for today. If we get new updates, we'll be sure to bring them to you, so make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Also, do let us know in the comments what are your thoughts on this topic. Is it a good thing or not? We'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.